hello. Thank you for having me here, Damia and Gisela. It's great to be in Barcelona again. I'm often in Barcelona because as a city museum in Europe, we work together in an informal way with city museums from all over Europe. I was director of the Amsterdam History Museum before I went to Berlin, and since then I've been part of that cooperation. And this time I'm with you and not with the city museums, and it's great to be here. So I'm going to give you a practical example of what we've been trying to do for a younger audience. And it's happening in the so-called Humboldt Forum. Now, maybe you've heard of it. If not, just go online and you'll see an enormous amount of discussion on this building. It's the reconstruction of the palace in the center of the city. And for that, it's seen by many people as not the right building for the purpose. Why not a modern building? Why the reconstruction of a historical situation, which was a centralized Baroque period instead of a diverse and decentralized period in history, and why the reconstruction of a building where the emperor, who was a colonial power, where the emperor was having his seat. Especially since two layers of this new building are now the Museum of Ethnology and Asian Art. On the building, you can see a cupola with a cross. So again, the objects from all continents are shown under the Christian cross. This is, in fact, of course, true. It is a difficult building. But in a way, it has erased the discussion on colonial objects, on colonial, so to say, theft, very much in Germany. And for that reason, Germany is now running like mad to make good for lost time in the discussion on looted art. So, there's a negative aspect and a positive aspect. And in this building, the City Museum of Berlin is having its own story. The city, Berlin, is a land, and the Federal Republic exists of 16 lands, and Berlin is one of them. It's an autonomous institution, my museum, within the land of Berlin, and we are having 4,500 square meters in this toxic building to tell the world history of Berlin. Now, when I was working in Amsterdam, I always wanted to tell about Amsterdam as the hub in the world, one of the hubs, just like London is, and Paris and Berlin, of course, also Barcelona. But we didn't have space and we didn't have money for it. And then I was invited to come to Berlin to see if I wanted to become director there. I didn't want to, but then I saw this project and this possibility. That was 5 years ago. And since then, I've been working on a space in which we are trying to tell the connections of a city like Berlin, on the example of Berlin, how the world is in Berlin, in a city like ours, just like in Barcelona, and how the city of Berlin has taken influence on the world. We're all connected. That's the story. And we are all responsible as world citizens for everything that happens in the world. This is actually the idea of Alexander von Humboldt, the name giver, one of the two name givers of this building. Alexander von Humboldt, in the 19th century already, said everything is connected. If you do something, it has a lot of results for others. He was the first environmental scientist ever, because he saw that if farmers in South America from Europe were doing their thing in the jungle, the climate there would change. He was the first to notice that. And to honor this great scientist and his brother, that building is not called the castle or the palace, but it's called the Humboldt Forum. I think it's a good name, and when we had to think of a concept for the exhibition on the world history of Berlin, Berlin Global, local, global, we of course tried to refer to Alexander von Humboldt's theories, He's not very clean himself. Everybody is toxic. I mean, the one who wants to state that he is clean of all kinds of, personal faults, yeah, stand up and say it now. But Alexander von Humboldt, for his time, was a great thinker and writer, and we were inspired by his idea that everything is connected. As I said, it's 3,000 square meters in the Humboldt Forum, but the City Museum has 5 other locations. I won't show them because we have a little bit of time to tell a few examples of what we've been doing here, and the other buildings you have to believe are there. They're also big, they're old, they're difficult. They're just as difficult as all the other patrimonial buildings that we are trying to foster for the public. We're working on them right now, but we could try out something here. I must be honest, I had 5 months to come up with a concept when I came from Amsterdam to Berlin. I didn't have time to go into the deep with goal groups. We thought of the 2 main goal groups, and we wanted tourists and young Berliners to get something on offer in this building, because I knew what was happening in the rest of the building. The rest of the building is traditional. It's other museums, not just the Ethnological Museum and the Museum of Asian Art, but also 2 others that tell the story as you know it from all other museums. There was no innovation there. So we thought, let's do something different. We're Berlin. We're not the Federal Republic. The rest is from the Federal Republic. We are Berlin. We are a little bit cross. We are a little bit different. And we want to be innovative, and we want to be there for a different goal group. Many visitors of museums, as Amanda has stated and shown, are elderly, and they are academic, and they know exactly what we're talking about. They become the same story over and over again, because we tell it, the white people on, as of a certain age. And we wanted to do something different. We wanted to try to find out if there is another story which is not the mainstream story. In Berlín Global, there is no mainstream history. It's about diverse ideas. It's about the multispectral idea of history. People talk about themselves from different angles. When the world is in Berlin, let the world talk about the world and not us. The academics that are trained to be museologists, ask them. Let them talk for themselves. This is what we did. And because we wanted to have young visitors, most of the tourists, by the way, that come to Berlin are young, but also the young Berliners have little on offer in the museums in Berlin. It's a little bit backward in Berlin. I mean, Great Britain, School of Leicester, is much more modern in its museology as Germany, and also in Holland, where we also have those academies that are into modern museology. They are further than most German institutions, I must say. Probably the reason why I was asked. As we say in Holland, I'm king one eye in the land of blind people. So it's easy to come up with a new order, and that's not chronology. It's thematical history that we chose. Chronology, oh, by the way, is in one of our other buildings. So it's there. So, the visitor that wants to have a proper history, a proper chronology of the history of Berlin, they go now to the Märkisches Museum, and in a while they will go to the Ephraim Palais. And they will have a proper history. Not here. Here we wanted to have a new format of history telling. Present-day perspective central. So something has to be said about today before we choose something from the history. If it's of no relevance for today, we left it out. So every older academic is saying, where's this, where's that, where's such, where's so? And we say, in the Märkische Museum, go and see it there. But not in this new performance where we tried to give another view of history. Participatory, inclusive, and interactive. Participatory, after 5 months we had a concept, and then we worked with focus groups and with critical friends on all the issues we chose. With many young people in it, but not just young people. Young people were involved in everything we did, but not as a special group, but as a part of, so to say, our team. The aim of the exhibition, as I said, create awareness and build connections between Berlin and the world. And everybody is in Berlin, everybody is on holiday in Berlin. We have a lot of tourists in the exhibition, and we connect the Germans with these tourists. Thematic. So what were the themes we chose? Because they have a connection with today, with the interest of younger groups. We chose, and you could have chosen some others, maybe too, but we chose revolution. I think much of that has been said before comes back in my speech, especially what the interests are of young people. Of course, we researched that. And I think revolution, demonstration is a very, very, you could say, popular thought, as has been explained in our first lecture today. Free space. Berlin, people come to Berlin for free space. In your head, but also in the streets, in the city, at nightlife, etc., etc. Borders or boundaries. There's no wall anymore in Berlin, but what are the new boundaries in our community? Entertainment. Of course, it's the city of, dance and clubs, and of the 60s and the 70s, but foremost the 90s. People come to Berlin for club life since the 20s. War. It's the city of war, because decisions were made in Berlin on where wars were going to be done, and not just in Europe. And people forget about that. Fashion, one of the issues that is of great importance to the history of Berlin, fashion making. And today, there's a different approach to it. We're very critical about it. By the way, I'm wearing second-hand, both of my pieces. Interconnection, the international connections I've been telling you about. There's a lounge, and that is very important. Now, the atmosphere of the exhibition should be for young people, of course. So you won't find a traditional room. Glass cases with objects are diminished to the minimum. You can see there is a large amount of urban art in it. This is the first room where you enter, and that is about your connection with the world. A question asked to you, like many other questions, when you are going through the exhibition, we are asking people to participate. They get for that an armband with a chip in it. You can enter yourself in the exhibition. If you don't want to leave your name, it's okay. You can say Donald Duck, no problem. And then you go as Donald Duck through the exhibition. More important, you're participating. You're participating on questions that are of great importance to the world. So that first room is really about connecting to the exhibition. First connect, then go on in your language. Then there were many, many inclusive languages, as you can see. This is our marketing campaign with English, of course, but also for the main languages in Berlin, which is Turkish, Polish, Arabic, etc., etc. And then comes French and Italian, etc. We have got 11 languages on a device. And of course also the language for the people that don't hear. So this is a core thing. Every room ends with 2 doors. By the way, it's a long story why it has 2 doors. It's not my choice to have 2 doors from room to room. It was first thought to be not a circuit, but an in and an out. For a library. By the way, we don't have a climate. I can do without climates. I'm sorry. I think it's very important also for the energy question we have at the moment. I think we are over-exaggerating the way we are trying to keep our objects. The Berlin museums I manage do not have climates at all. I've never had climate, and now we're talking about, oh, we can't do without climate? Okay, think about this. This exhibition is in a non-climatized surrounding, and we did different things. We took objects, but only objects with great impact, a few, because young people don't want to see masses. They want to, see few and concentrate on a few and then become part of that. As you can see, not so many objects, but a lot of technical things and a lot of interaction. These 2 doors are used to go from room to room, from theme to theme, every theme ending in a question. This is the room in which you are connected to the world, but you're also a community. If the shit hits the fan, what will you decide? Will you go for the world or will you go for your own community? Elderly people stand there and think about it for half an hour because they doubt. Amanda's son, how old was he last year? 11. 11 years old, run through the doors. I said, hey, come back. You have to answer your question. And he said, I did. I said, what did you answer? He said, I answered that. I said, why? He said, because of this and that and such and so. You don't notice it with young people. That's because of this. Young people game. Next level. You have to be quick. If you're slow, you've lost already. But they are quick. You know, just believe it. They're quick. I had to believe him because he was having a good argument. By the way, he chose I want to help the world, which is, I think, for young people also very important, that they connect to the world. They know what is happening because they know of everything a little bit. I recommend you a book in Italian, but you read Italian, I'm sure. And it's by Alessandro Barrico, and it's called The Barbarians. And he's talking about the millennials as consumers of culture. He's calling them I mutanti, the mutilated people. They serve. They serve over the surface. They take of everything a little bit. But that amount of knowledge is as good and as much as ours because we go into the deep. It's not less. But by going into the deep, we have ruined the world because we don't have an overview. They have an overview. Take young people serious, please. They know more than we think they know. And therefore, you let them participate in an exhibition. You ask them, what is your answer to the question? And then they're taken serious. And then they feel at home, they feel welcome, they feel part of what you're doing. So every room ends with a dilemma they have to solve, and there is an ending, of course. So let's go through a few things I said. First real room is an introduction. Take it step by step, please. Don't go into the deep right away. Just give an introduction. This is the introduction of our themes. We introduce them with cliché. Everybody knows Berlin because of the fall of the wall. Everybody knows Berlin because of free space, etc., etc. Cliché, cliché, cliché. We were not going to tell mainstream, were we? We're going to ask what is true about the mainstream. Are there other ideas? What is else to be said? And that's at the backside of every cliché. And this is important. Questioning the cliché. Okay, together they are Berlin. Free space, war, etc., etc. Can't be Petersburg or it can't be Paris. Together it's Berlin. But is it true altogether? Who is left out when we're talking about clichés? It's much more interesting. Young people want to know not about the central thing, the middle thing. They want to know about the diversity because they are connected to diversity. So, you know, before you say you know it, question it. Always. I can give you examples, but I think you know what I mean. There are no borders anymore in Berlin. What about, you know, is everything available for everybody? How is it about the former East and West? Is there no difference anymore? What about people that don't get an official entry to the country and stay illegal? There's so many borders still. By the way, there are more or thrice as many walls in the world than there were in the time that the Berlin Wall was standing. Revolution, I just wanted to show this because many things in the exhibition are interactive. You have to turn the table of history and choose together. The table doesn't work for one person. You have to choose out of a sort of compass of years, the year you want to be told about together. So you have to turn the table and decide, is it going to be 1848? Is it going to be 1918, 1919? Is it going to be 1963, etc.? Or is it going to be 1989, the most popular revolution of Berlin? And then you stop and then a film starts. But we're not stopping at the history. Around this table of history, this wheel of history, there are also connections to the rest of the world. What are the revolutions today with which we have to do, because the people that have to, flee from what is happening in their country, they come to us, to the citadel of Europe where it's safe. And we have to do with them, and they work on their own, say, history in Berlin, in Barcelona, in Amsterdam. Immersive spaces. Every room has a sort of immersive effect. This is on free space. These walls you see, they move whilst you're there. They go out and they go in. When they go out, the history of Potsdamer Platz, a famous free space from the history of Berlin in the 90s, is shown for artists and for all kinds of activities, and then they start to build, and the walls come towards you. So the metaphor is really there in the immersive space. Behind those central walls are 4 issues that need free space in life, in city life. Subcultures, gender, art, and religion. And we could, change them whenever a group says, I want to have my issue there, and I'll tell you about that later. All senses. I'll skip this, but this is the history of Berlin from 1850 till now, in one object. And you can go through it. This is the famous door of the famous Tresor Techno Club. And everybody can do it, and it's the picture everybody wants to make. I was in the Tresor. It's difficult to get in, by the way, if you're not really dressed for it. Borders, I've been telling something about it. By the way, everything must be able to be practiced also by people in wheelchairs. It must be read. It must be possible to read everything if you're in a wheelchair, to see everything when you're in a wheelchair. Just one example of barrier-free museum practice, which we simply have to do, and young people are very critical on it. If it's not there, for their friends, they will say, you did the wrong thing. Modern issues that are of today, issues they have to do with in their schools, in their universities, when they are starting their professional career. Racism. We have a huge department on entertainment. Entertainment is good, but not all is good in entertainment. There's a lot of racism in it. And we just don't know. We don't hear about it. We don't listen to it. And when I've seen this film, everybody sits there and has 4 people from 4 periods of history telling about how they were excluded from things in their entertainment professional career. Everybody sits there and listens and wants not to step out, because it's like a magnet. Suddenly you realize something. And then there are other things that, appeal to young people. If you talk about international connection, hip-hop is the utmost international thing that is happening in the world. It already was there when there was a wall between East and West Berlin. Really. And then they came together and became Turkish. And then it went to Istanbul, and then the Istanbul hip-hop came back to Berlin. Now, a better connected issue, which appeals to young people, you cannot give as an example. And you actually, for young people, you need only few examples to get the message over. The message, is seen by young people instantly if you put it 2 or 3 times in an exhibition. Our message is, you're a world citizen, you are part of the decision making. Don't wait for politics, just do it. And that message you can get if you go like a fish through the exhibition. Most young people go like fishes through an exhibition. I do myself, by the way, but I'm a professional. Most visitors of my age, they go like ants through an exhibition. So the fish needs a half an hour, 3/4 of an hour. Don't blame them for doing that. It's not important how long they are there. But the ants, they will take everything, and these people stay for 4 hours. And then they say, value for money. Okay, fine. So we give them not just the main road, we give them in-depth information, and they're surprised because most of what they read and see, they don't know because it's told by somebody different than the mainstream historian. Entertainment, you should also live. If you work with young people, it must also be fun. Please make some fun. Even if it's about serious things like racism and the nature that is going bust and everything that is so heavy in life, dance it away. Halfway, there is a disco ball in which you can, it's a totally mirrored room, you get music. By the way, dancing is a language that everybody speaks without using a language. You can connect dancing, and you do that in this room. So halfway, to move your feet and get a bit, all those racism you have been talking about, you have to get rid of it, and you can. Everybody dances here. If the thing is on your head, you can't move, you can't keep still your feet. Okay, I jumped through everything. I just skipped war, although I'll come back to it a little bit. Fashion, the glamour of the outside. By the way, all sets from used clothing asked by young students from a fashion academy to get lifestyles, so city styles together. And you learn a lot about who you are, to which group you are, to which group you belong. And it looks like, it's fashion. Fashion is glamour, isn't it? No, the manufacturing of fashion is horrible. It used to be horrible in Berlin around 1900, 1920, 1930s. Working at home in bad circumstances for very low wages. That happened in Berlin. Doesn't happen in Berlin anymore. Is it over? No, it's not over. It's now in Pakistan, in India, in Africa, in South America, and we are wearing it. And we don't pay for it. Not the right amount of money. So the inside is rotten. So the flashy outside and the rotten inside in one room, trying to explain people, please be aware. You can choose, by the way, after you have been through in this room, what your positioning will be. Now you've been there, what would you do with the future of clothing? And that's also one interactivity that goes into your watch. Going back to, let's make performative exhibitions where things happen. This is the uncovering of a monument for the remembrance of the victims of colonial wars and genocides in the colonies. In Berlin, there is a lot of commemoration for the Second World War, for the DDR history. There is none for colonial history. So this artist made a huge installation, these huge boxes, and he opened them performatively, and in it was nothing. That was his monument for the nothingness of commemoration of the colonial past in the city. It was fun to be there. Fun again. I mean, it's important. And in the end, you get your profile. You have been answering 10 questions. It's on your watch. You leave your watch in the machine, in the slit, and you get your answers to see. And then, with a click, you see the answers of the other visitors, the last 7,000, for instance, and you can see whether you're a majority or a minority in your answering. Just, to compare yourself a little bit. But in the end, you get this, a ticket for connection. This is two sides of the same ticket. This is me, and I've been answering my questions, and apparently, equality was the value that was most dominant in my answers. Nobody knows, but behind the answers above the doors were 4 central values that are worldwide used or very well known. Tradition, equality, security, and freedom. And then you answer at the end, my answers were mostly on equality. The others were there too. We're not, mono, but equality was most dominant with me. And therefore the question to me, what does equality mean to you? These people are the new guards. They are called connectors. They don't guard, they connect. They connect the people in the exhibition that are having trouble with technique, and they give a little bit of explanation of what is not clear. But mostly at the end, they connect people that don't know each other because they have their ticket for connection and there's a question on it, and they should discuss the question with each other, and they moderate the discussion. And then they sit at the back. You see there's sort of interesting environment, a lounge where you can sit and discuss. And if you discuss and you have an answer together, you write the answer or anything else on a piece of tape. It could also be we agree to disagree. And you glue it on an artwork that you make together. You see all the texts of all the other discussions, and you glue your tape on top of it. And when you do that, you get a gift. You get a gift, and it's again a bracelet. But this time it's made of semen, of flowers. You plant it at home, and after a few weeks you have a remembrance of your visit to the Humboldt Forum, to Berlín Global, and to the connection you have made to somebody else. Maybe you remember that person. Maybe it's somebody from far away in another part of the world. So the exhibition really tries to connect people, because that was the central issue of the exhibition. Just don't say the exhibition is participative, be participative. Don't say the exhibition is on not mainstream, just don't do mainstream. Don't say you make participative endings with connections, do it. And then you can say, I've tried. We try. Building is difficult still. I'm honest about it. So the next building will be more easy. That's our core building, the Mercatus Museum. And, this is the last slide. This is free space, or you could say the free space for communities. We've got 3 of those, so to say, spaces in which we invite communities to tell their own story. And they tell it. We give money. We also have somebody who really assists in the whole organization. This is one of the first. It's on the Sinti-Roma history of Berlin, and they tell their story themselves. You can apply for it on the internet. One of these spaces is empty always, and there is a big board saying, here could be your exhibition. Apply if you are a group with a certain history you want to tell. And the Sinti-Roma wanted to tell their story because they're always forgotten in the Holocaust. And they told their Berlin history here, and it will be there for a year. After a year, we will make a smaller part of it in the exhibition so that it stays permanent. And we've done it yet now with 4 other groups, also with so-called outsider artists, and now with Turkish women of the first generation in Germany, etc., etc. Maybe you're chosen. Maybe not by me, by the way. I'm not in the jury. There's nobody of the museum in the jury. It's a people's jury. It's a jury of people that are involved in issues. And they decide what is going to be the group in the next free space. Not me, the museum director. I'm standing here, I'm talking too much. Thank you for your participation.